Excuse the mess. Well, the lack thereof, I guess. I had to move my computer equipment over to my dad's recording studio for the time being because I'm working on a video project for him. It's got nothing to do with games, so it won't appear on this channel, so I guess forget I said any of that. Anyway, today we're going to be looking at Star Trek Starfleet Command, which means I finally get to break this out. Let's get started. Alright, let's tear into this, shall we? Let's see, I better do the tutorial first. I've never played this game before. Oh, wow, there's a lot of them. Okay, I guess we'll just go with the first one. Shouldn't be too hard. Fairly sure Starship shouldn't be taking this long to get up to full speed. Holy crap, these have got to be the weakest phasers I've ever seen on a starship. Finally! Now we can get on with... There's another ship.
Why are the tutorials so hard? I just want to shoot something.
Konnichiwa mina, orewa Jimina, and I've got to be perfectly honest here, I struggled for quite a bit trying to think of something to write about and talk about with the game for today. Mainly because it just hits you in the face with so much information at once, it's overwhelming. And now that I'm finally sitting down to record this episode, I still don't know what to talk about. But I worked this hard just to even cover the game for you, so I suppose I'm gonna try. Soredewa, hajimemashou.
First things first, this game is not to be confused with an earlier title, Star Trek Starfleet Academy, although the games do have similar genres and were developed and published by the same people, Interplay Entertainment, who had a hand in a number of original series-era Star Trek games in the 90s and early 2000s. But whereas Academy was released in 1997, this game was released 2 years later and was based on a board game called Starfleet Battles. Personally, if I might jump ahead a bit and express my opinion on something, I prefer Academy over Command, for reasons which I'll probably make clearer over the course of this video. Back to the matter at hand, not all Star Trek games Interplay made were space sims. In 1992, for the show's 25th anniversary, Interplay released a point-and-click adventure game entitled, appropriately enough, Star Trek 25th Anniversary, which had a sequel a year later titled Judgment Rights. Where to start with the gameplay? Well, first off, the easy bit. When starting the game, the first thing you'll do is pick which race you want to play the game with. You've got your fairly standard ST selection of Federation, Klingons, and Romulans, as well as the Gorn, the green-skinned lizard race that I think might even ring the bells of people just vaguely aware of Star Trek. Then there's the Lyrans and the Hydrans, races which I'm almost positive have never appeared in Star Trek before or since, at least not in any of the TV series. Don't quote me on it, but I'm fairly sure I'd remember seeing something like this. Once you've selected your race, you'll be able to choose your difficulty, Captain, Commodore, or Admiral, i.e. easy, medium, or hard, and decide whether you want to play the campaign, a skirmish, or destroy friendships with the multiplayer mode. For this video, we'll focus on the mode I spent the most time with, and the one which doesn't seem to be immediately frustrating or boring, the campaign. So, welcome to the campaign menu screen of Star Trek Starfleet Command, or, as I'm tempted to call it from now on, a plethora of buttons, the video game. As from this point, it sometimes seems like there's no less than 50 or 60 buttons and or clickable thingies on the screen at any one time. Before you can start clicking on the clickable thingies, however, you must enter your name and decide whether you want to load up a previous campaign or start a new one. If starting a new one, you must decide whether you want your campaign set in the early, middle, or late era, which has no effect on the difficulty, rather what level of technology you have available to you, though I didn't really notice much of a difference in that regard either. Once you've gotten a campaign going, you have yet more choices available. You can enter the Academy, which is a set of tutorial levels. Don't bother. When they're not confusing and frustrating, they're just boring. You can look at your ranks and medals. You can enter the recruiting office, where you can hire crew for any ships in your fleet. Like everything you'll buy, crew costs prestige, which you earn by completing missions, and they each have a different rank, ranging from Rookie, the absolute worst of the bunch, which can absolutely hamper your ship functions, to Legendary, the rarest but best, which can improve ship functions. Next, you have the Vessel Library. The Vessel Library. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Where you can view information on ships you've encountered thus far. The Shipyard, where you can repair your your ship, and purchase new ones, and the Space Dock, where you can purchase equipment for your ship. The Galaxy News map button shows a map of the galaxy divided into 6 sectors, each controlled by one of the 6 playable races of the game, and gives you information on how relations between the races are going at the moment. You can also use Prestige to plot a course to different points around the map, but this doesn't seem to have any effect on which missions you'll play, rather the crew available to hire. Now, speaking of missions, you access those through this button, New Mission. The Starbase Tour button does pretty much what I just did. It explains the function of the different buttons, so I guess you can ignore it now. The missions in the campaign seem to be the same no matter which race you play. They all involve space combat against Orion pirates. Once you click the Ready button, you're greeted with a heads-up display which puts that of Darkstar One to shame. I told you there were a lot of clicky thingies in this game, and it's up to you to use those clicky thingies properly in order to maintain a good balance between everything that might need to draw power on your ship, from the engines to the weapons to the sensors, all while of course trying to, as Mr. Sulu so elegantly put it,
blow something up.
Now you'll want to make sure you enter Red Alert before you do anything else, otherwise you won't be able to charge and fire your weapons. Now here we find something of an oddity with the key configurations. Red Alert is set to the R key by default. Makes sense, right? So you'd think green and yellow alerts would be similarly assigned. Nope. Looking at the key bindings in the options reveals that yellow alert has no key set to it by default, while green alert has no key at all. Not that inconvenient or game-breaking, but certainly strange. Moving on to, well, movement. You can increase and decrease the speed at which your ship cruises through space with the use of this slider at the bottom of the screen, but be forewarned, it takes forever and a day for your ship to get up to the speed you designate. To turn your ship, you simply click the star field to the left or right of your ship, but again, you might want to go get some popcorn or something while it turns. In fact, practically everything your ship does is a slow, laborious process. Movement, turning, charging your weapons, destroying an enemy ship. At least for turning, you can speed things up a little bit through the use of these buttons, which allow you to perform what are known as high-energy turns, but don't go crazy clicking these things. Firstly, even the high-energy turns take some time to activate, though nowhere near as long as anything else. But more importantly, your ship starts with a certain chance to perform a high-energy turn. Anything below 100 means a chance of failure. If an HET fails, your power reserves take a massive hit, and you'll probably stop dead in your tracks for a while as well. If this happens during battle, you are probably pretty much screwed unless you happen to be amidst allies or near a starbase for some backup. Now, I've mentioned the races available in the game, but I haven't really gone into the differences between them. As you might expect, the humans of the Federation are your basic, standard, average, beginner-friendly race. And I think I'm right in saying they're the only race with access to photon torpedoes. Klingons, despite being the big bad war-loving race of Star Trek, seem to me to be the weakest of the races. Rather than photon torpedoes, Klingons have disruptors, which are actually weaker than photons and have less range. A select few Klingon ships are able to cloak. Now, if you want more cloakable ships, you'll want to go with the Romulans. When cloaked, you won't be able to fire your weapons, but enemies' weapons will have a much harder time locking onto you. Also, if you feel like bothering with high-energy turns, the Romulans are again your best bet, as their ships start out with a 166% HET chance, which means you have 3 guaranteed HETs available before things start getting risky. For heavy weapons, Romulans use plasma torpedoes, which are very slow-moving and can be targeted by enemy phasers and destroyed, or at least weakened, before they reach the enemy ship. The Gorn, Lyrans, and Hydrons also have unique qualities about them, but again, going back to just how boring this game can be, I don't really remember much about them, other than the fact that my game auto-failed during the Gorn campaign, saying my ship was destroyed when I quite clearly was not. And design-wise, I have to say I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the Hydron ship either. I could go into numerous other things about this game, but I haven't made a near hour-long video for this series since the King's Quest video, and I'd rather not start again, so let's wrap things up. As I alluded to at the start of the review, Starfleet Command is not my favorite of the Star Trek games. Everything, and I mean everything about this game is just too damn slow-paced. Heck, you can't even go to warp in this game. That's why I prefer Starfleet Academy, or even the previously mentioned Darkstar One over this one. There's a lot to do in those games, yes, but you're not immediately overwhelmed with the multitude of options. I'd even go back to playing Star Trek Online before playing this again. At least in STO, the controls are much simpler. You have gameplay both in space and on planets. With the release of the Delta Rising expansion, you can interact with some of the characters from Star Trek Voyager, and it's free to play. And no, before you ask, that is not the game I'm going to be covering for low-budget gaming this month. But don't worry, I think you'll like what I've got planned for that. You know, I'm beginning to wonder if Fraps was trying to tell me something when it decided not to cooperate with these games. I mean, I've shown you 2 out of the 3 games that I wasn't previously able to record, and that's the second of these 3 games that I haven't really liked that much. Oh well, next week we've got Starship Titanic, and despite my experiences of the past couple of weeks, I'm still cautiously optimistic about that one. For one reason, and one reason only. It was written by Douglas Adams. I've already played a little bit of the game, but even that little bit has encouraged me, so hopefully that'll mean this whole endeavor of trying to record and review these games for you isn't a wasted effort. Anyway, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the game if you've played it or something similar. If you haven't and you want to give it a try, I'll leave a link in the description below the video. Like and share the video if you like it and want to share it. And of course, keep up with what's going on here at the channel by liking and following the Facebook page or the Twitter page. And of course, clicking the subscribe button. Onegaishimasu. Chikai made. Sayonara.